Peace and blessings, everyone. This is your brother Asar Imhotep coming to you with a live presentation. And, excuse me, we're going to get things started in a little bit. Just going to wait a few minutes and seconds for anyone who's going to be live to join in. And get my stuff together over here. What's going on? Yes, it's been a minute since I've done a live on this channel, so I'm just getting my stuff in order, and we'll be getting started soon. So peace to everyone who's in the chat already, and who's others who are just viewing live. Again, I'm just starting the chat. Excuse me, starting the live feed, and we will get started a little bit. They acting wild in the chat room here. We'll be getting started in a few minutes. Today's I'm trying to reduce the length of my lectures so they're digestible. So today is going to be a little bit short, and as the title suggests, we're going to be dealing with the Egyptians as a Bantu people. And so this is lesson 1 of my new text, Aaluja Volume 2, which is still on pre-sale at this moment, but it is at regular price. So this is the text right here. Currently, right now, it's over 560 pages. And another book that's coming out in January is the Towards a Comparative Dictionary of Chicam in Modern African Languages. So be on the lookout for that if you haven't gotten this already. And so, we're going to get busy today. And so part of, this text here is to demonstrate the relationship between ancient Egypt and Bantu civilizations. And so that's why it's subtitled Chiena into Religion and Philosophy. And so what I demonstrate in this text is that Bantu philosophy is Egyptian philosophy. So, and you'll come to discover how that is the case, through all these pages. So, again, if you haven't gotten this text or pre-ordered this text, it comes out January 1st. Go to my website, www.asarimhotep.com, and you can purchase it there. And after the 1st, it'll be available on Amazon. And so yeah, I think we're good for now. Peace to Jolanda. Peace to Omar Reed, CK the Poet, Brother David Shaw, Brother Chavez, Al-Kebalon, HVAC, and anyone else who is watching this live. So I'm not going to hold on. Yes. So for those, and excuse my speech because I bit my tongue earlier, chewing on something I wasn't supposed to. So you may see me doing this to my cheek, throughout the night. But we're just going to get started. So I'm going to switch into share screen mode. And go to share screen. So the entire application. Sharing screen. So while I'm in this, I won't be able to see what's going on in the chat, but let me actually, because I have two computers up, my old super slow computer and then my slightly faster computer, which I'm on. Do 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 do. So again, the title of this presentation is Aaluja Volume 2, Lesson 1. And so throughout the year, you'll see me title these like Aaluja Volume 2, Lesson 2, Aaluja Volume 2, Lesson 3, et cetera, with a different title. And so I'll just be randomly picking different aspects of the book to talk about. So what I'm talking about in this particular lecture is going to be it's a small part of the introduction, but there's a lot more that is in that introduction regarding this topic than what I'll be presenting today. So hold on 1 second. Where's my page? Oh, there we go. So I see there's been a lot of activity on the net recently. So I'm been busy, as y'all know. Just give me 1 second. Getting things in order on this other computer. I'll just pause that. Okay. This way I can at least see the chat a little bit, I think. Okay, so Hotep, everyone, peace. Okay, now I'm gonna get busy. No more delay. Okay, so again, Aaluja Volume 2, Lesson 1. The Egyptians called themselves Bantu. Now, for those of you who have been keeping up with me over the years, know that I constantly get into these debates with individuals because I choose to do a lot of cross comparisons between the ancient Egyptian language and culture with that of modern Bantu languages and cultures. And people get in their feelings because they feel that for some odd reason that we're not supposed to do this. And here's one of the reasons why I can. The Egyptians called themselves Bantu. Now, they didn't use the word Bantu in that pronunciation, but you'll see how it is related in a few moments. So, as I stated, what I'm presenting here is in this book, Aaluja Volume 2, China into Religion and Philosophy, which you can get at the website www.asarimhotep.com. So we'll just get started with the theoretical framework. So what do we mean by Bantu? As far as the languages are concerned, Bantu are the speakers of the Intu languages, and this is just I'm just swiped this from Wikipedia. Comprising several hundred indigenous ethnic groups in sub-Saharan Africa, spread over a vast area from Central Africa across the Great African Lakes to Southern Africa. So the Bantu people are a group of people who speak Intu languages. And so here's an example of a Bantu speaking people, the Chiluba people in Central Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I should have juxtaposed this with an image where in ancient Egypt, you'll see the same type of beadery across the chest like this for performers. And that would have been a good slide to present to y'all. But the Bantu classification was coined by Wilhelm Heinrich Emanuel Bleek by 1863. He noted that all of the languages in Central and South Africa use the stem into to refer to person or man. And this is Bleek right here, Wilhelm Bleek, as we see him. So where did the word Bantu come from? The word Bantu for the language families and its speakers is an artificial term based on reconstructed Proto-Intu term for people or humans. So there's no ethnic group of people called Bantu. It's just a label that is placed upon a group of languages that are related to each other. It was introduced again by Wilhelm Bleek in 1857 or 1858 and popularized in his comparative grammar of 1862. The name was coined to represent the word for people. So this word here, Bantu, means people, and is loosely reconstructed for Proto-Intu from the plural noun class prefix ba, categorizing people, and the root into, some entity, any entity or thing. So like in the Amazulu language, you say Umuntu for a singular person, Abantu in the plural for people, Intu for thing, Izintu for things. So you see that the root is this into, as we can see here. And so when you say Bantu, you're saying people, thing, people, objects, or people, beings, because like into really is a word for being as such. And so we continue. So Bleek's coinage was inspired by the anthropological observation of groups self-identifying as people or true people. That is, idiomatically, the reflexes of Bantu in the numerous languages often have connotations of personal character traits as encompassed under the value systems of Ubuntu, also known as Hunhu in Shishona or Botho in Sesotho, rather than just referring to all humans. So there's so one thing Bleek noticed again, that when the people refer to themselves, they refer to themselves as some variation of Muntu or Bantu or Intu, and that this was in relationship to this phenomenon, this philosophy called Ubuntu, which is like the art of being human. And so, you know, when you review that text, you know, it goes into a little bit more detail. So when we go to ancient Kemet, the ancient Kemets were the same way. So just like how you saw amongst the Bantu people in Central and South Africa, when they named themselves the people, the ancient Egyptians named themselves the people as well. But they used a word that we pronounce as Remech. That is our Egyptology speak, Remech. And so you can see, this is from the Ramesses III tomb, the word here, Remech. So these people are identified as the Remech. And you can see the glyphs right here, the R and the T, the M was omitted, and then the classifiers right here. So this is a little bit more clear. So the word for person in Chicam Middle Egyptian is remech. Remech can be singular for man. It can also mean people in the plural. In Coptic, you would say Rome or Lome, which means man, husband. A reflex of this word in the Chiluba Bantu language in Central Africa is lume, male, masculine, mulume, husband, man, and chilume, sperm. So we can see from ancient Egypt all the way to modern Bantu, they have the same word for person or male. And this is one variation of how the word is written in the actual hieroglyphs. And so you will see this phrase remech and Kemet, and it means the people of Kemet. So this is how they fully identify with themselves. So it's not just the people, it's the people of Kemet. And so here's another variation from this variation that we saw up here of the word remech. But what I'm proposing to you today is that the word remech and the word Bantu are the exact same word, and that you will have to do some linguistic exercises to understand how they relate. And so when I was doing my research for this and doing my experimentation, there was one researcher who came the closest to solving the problem of the origin of the word remech, and that was Dr. Alan Anselin, who passed this year. He's out of the Caribbean. He had a journal, and he's done a lot of work, comparing ancient Egyptian to modern African languages of the French-speaking world. And so, in this text that I'm citing here is titled "The Words of Gino: Fulbe, Cushitic, Nilots, and Ancient Egyptians." And I translated this from French, so it's originally in French. But he gives a something that we can build with, that we would discover that he was correct in some ways, and in the text in Aaluja Volume 2, I demonstrate where he went wrong in other ways. But in the Fulfulde language, he has rem as a verb born in gender. Rem go, to have a young ones. Substantive dimki, plural of demo. In the Pular, rimde, in gender. Sier, remet, child. Ramal, plural. Tamal, ak, noun, birth, parentage, verb, to give birth to a baby or other young. Dimfo, tima, childbirth. In Sier, lim, as many West African forms echoes that of the Eastern Cushitic. Rim, uterus. Somali, reme, uterus. Oromo, rim, pregnant. Burgi, remayakaf, become pregnant in terms of cattle. And so what gave me, when I was looking at the Fulani, that's the Fulfulde here, just another way of saying Fulani. When I was looking at the Fulani language, it gave me a clue as to how to solve the problem. Because let's go back up for a moment. So notice that when we say remech in Middle Egyptian, that it has this T, this type of palatized T here. So that's why we say remech. But notice in Coptic and notice in Chiluba, that chi is missing. So the question is, what happened to this, and where did it come from, and what does it mean? So, again, in Coptic, Rome, Lome, in Chiluba, Lume, Mulume, and I give more examples across Africa. And the vast majority of them don't have this ch at the end of the word. So where did this come from, and what does it mean? So that was the question that I was seeking to ask. seeking to answer. So we'll go back. So when I looked in the Fulani language, especially in the Furdu dialect, I noticed a pattern. And so in let's look at these examples real quick. So we have serde, to smoke, to make smoke. And then we have kirki, or sirki, smoke. This day at the end of sir is a verbal suffix. But notice what I have here in red. Ki, smoke. It deverbalizes the verb and makes it into a noun. And for those who don't know, that ch, T sound in ancient Egyptian, it derives from ki. So at some point in the history of the ancient Egyptian language, the remech was pronounced something like remech ki, because it's the ki that turned into the ch sound. So we see this in this other word here, tunkide or tunkunde, to be quiet still. Tinki mek, very quiet. Again, turning the verbs into nouns. Welde, to be sweet, to be sharp. Labi mbelki, a sharp knife. Yide, to love, the desire. And jiki, love, as an an abstract noun. So we see this pattern, and we notice the same pattern, the same feature in the Egyptian language. So let's look at this. So sifi, to mix, which is a verb. Then you have safetch, one of 7 sacred oils. Zareb, to flow, to drip. Sera, to flow. This is reduplication. And so here it has a B suffix, and here is reduplicated without the suffix, to flow. Seret, water on a sacrificial plate. Zed, to linger, to creep. Zereha, to reach, to arrive at, to place. But then Seret, cargo boat, towboat. Kheri, to milk. Erit, milk, as in the noun milk. And then see this other variant, iriti, belonging to milk, sucking calf. So we see the same pattern of the ch sound that nominalizes a verb. So what this tells us is that the word remech, the RM part, is a verb, and that the ch is a fossilized suffix for the word remech in Middle and Old Kingdom Egyptian. So also when you notice the examples given by Dr. Anselin, you saw words for like uterus, body parts, to impregnate, things to that nature. And from my studies in African languages, I know there's a pattern, there's a semantics that exists, and that is that words for body parts become words for genitalia, and then genitalia becomes words for to impregnate, to produce, and then those words become words for people. And we're going to see the same thing happen here in the Egyptian language. So, and I'm going to show you how we get from these words here to the word remech. There's a linguistic feature that y'all going to have to pay attention to. So we have zemeri, a part of the body. And so this is a suffix for body parts. You've seen this one, zemer, lung. And then you say zemerti, testicles. Semer, scalp, temple of the head. And so for those who are familiar with the language know that the Z became S or merged with S in the Old Kingdom. And so remember what I said, words for body parts then become words for people. So Wazimu, a part of the human body. Remet, a part of the body. Testicles. And you have remen, shoulder. Notice what happens here. This Z sound turns into R. And I have this marked here. Z becomes R in between two vowels. So this is how we go from Zemerti, testicles, lung, etc., part of the body, to Uremet, a part of the body, testicles, etc., etc. Because of this particular feature, this particular sound change. So remember what I said, that the word for body comes to mean a body part, meaning like testicles or, vagina, etc., to copulate with. And then you have here Zemech, head, chief, master. And you should know that the word Remech, it first and foremost means a male, like a human male. And so the chief, the head, master, etc., is the male. So this is the older form. So hopefully y'all will get exactly what I'm showing you here. And so this is the evolution of the word Remech. So Zemir, Wazimu, where Remet, Remech, from Zemech. And so notice that when this W is in front of Z, it now, because there's a vowel in between the W and the M that surrounds the Z. And it's because of being in that phonetic environment that it eroticizes the Z and turns it into a R. So that's how we get the word Remech. So hopefully, y'all are getting this. So let me know if y'all can still hear me and all that good stuff in the chat room. Hold on. So I'm going to continue. Hold on 1 second. Just making sure that everything is still live. Cool beans. Alrighty. So, the phenomenon which I just explained, again, is called rhoticism. So this is from the book Historical Linguistics and the Comparative Study of African Languages by Dr. Garrett Divendahl. So he says rhoticism is a common sound change affecting the coronal, alveolar, or post-alveolar, pre-palatal fricatives. Thus, S may become R, often through an intermediate voicing stage of Z, or by way of a retroflex voice, R, or voiceless R. This change occurred in Germanic languages, as in German ver lerin, which is cognate with English lose, and a range of other families. So this rhoticism, as you can see here, is from S or Z to R. And so I'm just going to give another example that you find in the ancient Egyptian language. So many of you may be familiar with the word rik, a hostile snake, or ririk, a hostile serpent, but it comes from zik, a snake that you can see here. Again, it's telling us that there's two vowels, one in front of the Z and one after the Z, which facilitates the rhoticism. And so in Campbell, 1998, he defines rhoticism exclusively as a change in which S or Z becomes R. Usually this takes place between vowels or glides, as I mentioned. So we can see another example here in the Sumerian language. Hebiz, air. Then Hebira, sun. Ibila, air. So notice here that when Hebiz is not followed by a trailing vowel, the Z remains. But as soon as a vowel is behind the Z, it turns into R, which then turns into L. So I hope I'm making sense. So as I stated, the fundamental pattern is body part, genitalia, man. So you can see it in this other example in the ancient Egyptian for the semantics. Mit, which is this glyph here for phallus, and then mitwut, semen, sun. And so you can see in other ways that the word for body or body part becomes the word for people or person. So you have here, body of an animal. You have chet, people, belly, womb, body, sole of a foot, ship's bilge. Chetet, belly of the gods of men, group of people, troop. Chet, group, body of the gods or man, generation, people, troop. A generation, mass of a substance. So remember, I think I go into this in the book, that this ch is a root, the very root that becomes the R or the Z in the word zemed or remech, and also the j sound. But I won't get into that because I want to try to keep it simple for tonight. So this is taken directly from Aaluja Volume 2. And so what I do is I give some examples in ancient Egyptian and some other languages where the word for to bear or to give birth becomes the word for person. So you can see that this is a pattern in African languages. So it is this same grammatical morpheme that turns the verb, and I'm talking about the T, because the ch sound merges with the T in Middle Egyptian. So it becomes the suffixal T that nominalizes verbs. So we can see here in this word here, pa, to bear, to be born. When the T suffix is added, it's the word the people, humankind, patricians. I said the notion that a human is he or she who is born or the one who bears can be found across a myriad of African languages. For example, in Collagen, we have the word of the root e, bear, give birth. Also pronounced ye, give birth, procreate, have children, bear, beget, bread, bring forth. This root is in the word boyisiek, adults, men, mature people. So it just has some prefixes and suffixes on here, and it becomes the word for adults, men, mature, and people, just like we see in ancient Egyptian. In the Wolof language, we have the word gin, phallus, and then we have gwine, agone, adolescent, or a child. In Egyptian, we have peri, to copulate with, to fertilize. Then when the T suffix is added, it becomes a word for human beings, men, women. To beget, a word to conceive, to be pregnant. Ireru, human beings. So word, to be pregnant. In Sumerian, we have pesh, to give birth, to be pregnant, pregnancy. Pesh, descendant, grandson, etc., etc. And I'll just leave this up a little while so, you know, when you review this text, you can go back and and pause the video so you can read it on your own. But this exact paragraph is in Aaluja Volume 2. So again, I just wanted to show the pattern. The pattern is to bear, to be born, to procreate, and then human being. That's the semantics. And so the word into, again, as I argue, is a variant of the word remech, or the RM in remech. And it's the T sound that becomes D, becomes L, becomes R in various African languages. And the N in the word into is what we call this prefix of agent. It lets you know that the root of the word itself refers to a particular agent, somebody that's animate. And when this prefix of agent is followed by the U sound, then this can what's the word I want to use? Morph into the M sound that you see in like Muntu or something like that. So the word Muntu or Bantu in the singular for a human being has a cognate in the Hausa language. And so this ngu, which becomes M, can be prefixed or suffixed in these African languages. So in Hausa, it is both prefixed and suffixed to the root, to. And so one is fossilized and one is the more modern active variant, meaning man or male. And so this word to, even though they say it means entity or being, is just a word for body or body part. So as we can see in these Proto-Bantu reconstructions, this word to is present in the word for body, in the word for head, in the word for ear, in the word for servant or person. And so I'm going to go to a text that's real important. You really can't see this image, but this is Reverend W. Wagner's comparative lexical study of Sumerian and into Bantu. And he did some very important work in the early 1930s and 1935, comparing the Sumerian language to Bantu languages of Central and South Africa, especially the Amazulu language. And so from his text, he says this, and this is going to be very important for understanding the relationship between the word Rome, Lume, Chilum, and the word Muntu, into. So, and everything that he states here is verifiable. So when he's talking about the root into, this is what he has to say. He says some points need noting beforehand. One is that while in Sumerian mu and ji denoted man in the sense of virility, into in Chibantu, mu and ki with their variants go both ways, although they mostly stand for homo, person. The second is this: we dispense once more with the class prefix or the determinative idea, restoring to mu its ancient character as component of equal standing with lu, ru, into, and so on. A third point regards the into replicas of Sumerian mulu. Into muru is almost literally identical with it. The variant muntu is apt to claim special interest since Bantu or into have been adopted as designation of an immense family of peoples and languages. When I wrote the first volume of my Science of the Zulu Grammar, that is, at a time when I was not ex professo engaged in comparative lexical study, I already thought it not beyond the limits of possibility that the stem of Umuntu is but another form of person, Lu, that is of Sumerian Lu, man. Since then, the possibility has turned into an established fact. A fourth point, I proceed from Sumerian Mulu. It will be found that in the course of proposing its variants, the Sumerian words for man turn up in identical or varied form. At the same time, it should be borne in mind that the Sumerian m and ng forms are philologically identical. This symbol here is like a n and a g pronounced simultaneously. It's ng. Wherefore, ng of Sumerian ngash may well be replaced by into m, so that ngash reappears as into as ma. So what he's saying here is that the root into the two part is cognate with the word lu in Sumerian. And if you know in Sumerian, you can say the word person as lu, mulu, or lume or dume. So as I mentioned before, like just like how we saw in Hausa, the mu affix is both prefixed and suffixed in related languages. And you see the same thing in Sumerian. So what I note in Aaluja Volume 2, continuing Wagner's conversation starting on page 143, is that Sumerian Mulu finds its inverse in Chibantu in the following forms. So this is what Wagner's saying now. Lumu, Lumi, Lume, Luma, Loom, Madumu, Umu, Tum, Zoom, Nungu, Shungu, Rumi, Dumi, Lume, Lume Indu, Ume, Rume, Rume Indu, Dume, Nume, Noom, Lunga, etc. Given that Urum is a dialectical form of Mulu in Sumerian, Murum, Urum, Mulum, Mulu, and Urum is cognate with Middle Egyptian Remech, and Mulu is a variant of Muntu, then Remech is a variant of Muntu in the reverse. Thus, Muntu, Intum, Rum Ki, Remech. So I'm hoping y'all can see the pattern here. So the very forms that we saw, like in Chiluba, in Coptic, etc., is found all over the Bantu sphere, even in the Sumerian language. And so when you say Remech, it literally is a word meaning Bantu or Muntu. It's just a different dialectical variation, just like that we see in these different Bantu dialectical variations. And so, given that the phrase Remech in Kemet that we mentioned earlier, remember that the word Remech comes from a root meaning to be born, to be engendered. We can reinterpret this phrase to be those who are born of Kemet, therefore the indigenous of Kemet. And this better explains the ethnonym and how it applied to the ancient Egyptians. And so it's those born of Kemet, the indigenous. And so I end there, and I hope I made sense and that the presentation was short and to the point, and that y'all understood everything that I had to say. So, excuse me. Woo. I'm trying to catch up in the chat to see if any of y'all have any questions based upon hold on. I'm getting used to this StreamYard back panel. So again, just checking the chat. Yeah, CK the Poet, I will try to do more of these shows, more educational shows, and more interviews. So I'll be having some interviews with some well-renowned scholars, so that y'all can hear more than my voice on this channel. So let me see. And I know there's going to be a time delay, so I'm trying to give y'all time to hear it. And if you have any questions that you want to formulate, let me know. And I'm not seeing any questions per se. So I'll just leave that there. Yeah, I mean it's not difficult. You know, the information is just you just kind of pay attention. So knowing what rhoticism is and the phonetic environment will help you to trace the word remech. Shalonda said Mboli. I assume you're asking in the context of possibly interviewing him in the future. We probably will, because he's working on a book, and I assume he's going to release it this year. So around the time that he releases it, we'll probably do another interview with him. 42 Tribes ask, I'm curious as to how you think Sumerian relates to Indo-European. I think it is a far, far distant relative, but only in the sense that Sumerian is my redefining of the Negro Egyptian language family. So it is a Chiena Intu language, but Chiena Intu languages had influence in the development of Indo-European. So it's not an Indo-European language. It's not relatable in that way, but they are a part of a group that ended up in the Middle East in ancient times and helped to influence the formation of the language through convergence. So hopefully that makes sense. Excuse me. I'm gonna see if there's any more questions. If not, I am going to end. Hold on, what we got here? So why is Garfield saying that West Africans aren't the same as the ancient Kikama? I think he is saying in the sense that in terms of our recent history, in terms of our collective history, that the West Africans have a distinct language and culture from the ancient Egyptians, and everyone wants to attach themselves to the ancient Egyptians, not understanding that these other African cultures are just as great and just as powerful, even without the necessarily monuments that have been built. But ultimately, these cultures are related, language-wise. They come from the same sources, etc., from the people, so they're relatable. It just depends on what time period you're talking about. So if you're talking about from like 1441, when the Portuguese took the first Africans from West Africa into Spain, no, that's a different set of people than the ancient Egyptians. But if we go back a little further, then you see that they have a common origin. So I hope that makes sense. If there's any other questions, put it in the chat now, and I'll try to wait a minute or so for the time delay. And, you know, I forgot what the second lesson is going to be. I'll probably do it next week, next weekend or so. Okay. CK the poet says he has a question, so I'll just wait for you to type it. Yeah, Lume, Mulume, and Uncle, and Isikosa. Okay, I'm gonna do these one at a time. So, Anthony Harris asks, "What's the best book to purchase in order to study the language of ancient Egypt?" Um, I would wait on Brother Wujawu's. He's working on a grammar book. I know he has an introductory book on, learning the basic hieroglyphs and things of that nature. And uh, and I know he's working on a grammar book now. So if he's still in the chat, he should be able to tell you when it is going to come out. So I think it's coming out in 2020. So I would get with him, and so I would start off with Jawu's text on the introduction into the hieroglyphs, and then his second book dealing with the grammar. And so I see that he's in the chat now. He says, "Do you mind give us a list of the oldest languages in Africa?" And I also have a follow-up question. Okay. There's really no way to date a language, and all modern languages are modern. And so you can't say that this one's older than any other language, because they're all contemporary languages. So um, all I can say is that the oldest written language would be that of the ancient Egyptian. So that's a hard question to answer. Peace, Brother Mathis. Sarah Jahuti asks, "Are you gonna put this presentation in your archive so we can listen to it later?" Only asked because I missed your previous presentation. Yeah, it should automatically be in the archives once it is done. So also I wanted to ask, are there any other writing systems in Africa outside of what the Egyptians were writing during their time? Africans had different ways of writing, but they didn't have an elaborate system at the time that the ancient Egyptians were writing in the way that the ancient Egyptians were writing. And so, you had ways of carving, statues that was writing, the ways that you would sew patterns in the clothing and techniques like that. They use that as a type of writing. Even tying knots, the way that they would tie knots, that's how they would send messages, back and forth. But in more relatively recent history, there's been a slew of African scripts, like the Ndombe script out of the Congo. You have the Ndebele script. There's a lot of scripts coming out of Africa, and so ancient Egypt isn't the only place that has writing in Africa. So I would look into those writing scripts. And there's the Gayes script coming out of Ethiopia. It's a whole bunch. Of course, the Maradic script coming out of the Sudan. So I will look into those. Let me see. Yeah, I'm seeing Brother Bujawu's currently answering the question of the text I recommended. So for those who aren't in the, don't have the benefit of the chat, the he said the approximate date is April of 2020. Ancient Egyptian orthography and grammar, a synchronic descriptive grammar of the oldest speech of Kemet. So, so that's the title of the text. So look for an approximate date in April of 2020. Lionel Joseph, he says, Hotep, brother, excellent presentation. Getting ready to take up lessons with Dr. Raketi Ahmed's program. Any tips for a newbie on the best way to approach the lessons? The best advice that I can give is to treat the learning of the Meta script like you would do mathematics. Mathematics is something that you have to do. Just sit there and practice just all day, just copy stuff all day, you know. And so the more that you practice and you know, it'll help in your memorization. It's just every day, you know, like wake up in the morning, do your prayers and do a page of practicing. Next thing you know, you'll be, you know, you'll be surprised at how much you learn. It's just a matter of practice. That's it. It's not that difficult when you really think about it. It's just a matter of practice. That's all. So let's see if there's any other question. So I got about 3 or 4 minutes left. Try to keep this under an hour. If there's no more questions, I will end this program. And again, for those who are just coming, Aaluja Volume 2, Keying into Religion and Philosophy. So today's lesson, it, you know, came directly from the introduction chapter, and that was just a small segment. And what I put on the screen today was just bits from there. So there's actually more in the text. So, and thank you all for those who have pre-purchased and you know, working diligently to get these out to you as soon as possible. And so be on the lookout for these in your mailbox. And again, also working on a text towards a comparative dictionary of Chicam in modern African languages. And what's unique about this text is I've compiled a lot of my language comparisons and put them in one text with some additional chapters that originally was going to go in here, but it would have been too much to print. So I took those 2 chapters out and put them in here. And I'm thinking of adding another chapter. I'm just trying to find these one comparisons that I've done. And so the objective is I want to start organizing and developing a software database to do online comparisons with other African languages. So the dictionary will not be a physical book. It will be online. And so that's what I discuss here, but just laying out the premises for, you know, how we compare and how do we determine what is a cognate or not in these other African languages. So, and I do some comparison between Sumerian, for example, and Meroitic. So I have a chapter here doing a comparison between Semitic and Meroitic. That is be very surprising to those who you know, enjoy that type of work. But yeah, this is also available on my website. So let me jump back in the chat. He says, how come no African people claim to be relatives of the ancient Egyptians? Where are they? There are people that I know in Sudan and even in Egypt living today who claim to be relatives. But again, if you're looking for relatives, in far off places in Africa, they're relatives in the ancient historical sense. So they're not going to have necessarily memories of being relatives of the ancient Egyptians. It don't quite work that way. However, in the introduction, I discuss a few of the migrations of the ancient Egyptians. Some going to Senegal, and then I discussed the collagen people coming out of through the Sudan into Kenya. And so you'll have the sources on that material in the text. So there are some people who do have memory of being related to the ancient Egyptians, and their stories were written down in the early 1900s. So that's documented in the text. Let me see. Yes, the book is thick. It would have been a lot smaller, but the half of the book is dedicated to addressing Dr. Wesley Muhammad. So chapters, 8 through 13 is addressing Dr. Wesley Muhammad. So I don't know if you can see here, a response to Wesley Muhammad 2017. So that's half of the book right there. So yeah, it's not a quick read. It's gonna be a minute. And this book is 8.5 by 11. So it's thick and it's big. So but I wanted to make sure that I give y'all some content for a while, because after this book, I'm switching gears. As y'all know, I'm back in school for computer science, and I have to focus on my computer science work. So it's back to mathematics, coding, all that good stuff. So I gotta leave Africana studies alone for a minute. So let me see. Let me see. Okay. I don't see anything else. So I appreciate all of you. I'm gonna end it now. So I have hit the hour mark, and so I want to keep this short and digestible. So I appreciate all of you for tuning in. I promise you there will be more shows, and I'll keep them digestible within an hour, as promised. So thank you all for who are in the chat. Thank you all who are just listening, and thank you all who are listening as a result of the archive. And y'all have a happy new year. I'll see y'all in 2020. And God bless y'all. Good night.